Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dvandaititam Gaganasadrishan Tattvamashadi Laksham Ekam Nityam Vimlamachalam Sarvadi Shakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tannamami. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and illusion and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sham no Mitraha Sham Varunaha Sham no Bhavatvaryama Sham no Indri Birhaspatihi Sham no Vishnu Kramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayu Tvameva Pratjaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratjaksham Brahma Varishami Ritam Varishami Satcham Varishami Tanmam Avatu Tadvaktaram Avatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Salutations to all beings, salutations to mankind, salutations to the ancestors, salutations to the celestials, salutations to the gods and goddesses, salutations to Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, God with form, and salutations to the formless Brahman. Thou art what is real, what is true, and what is beneficial. Therefore, protect us and protect our teachers. Protect Guru, Dharma, and Sangha forevermore. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishwavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Welcome to all beings after you have been saluted. Mankind, celestials, the gods and goddesses, the ancestors, the Trinity, which is a great part of our Taittiriya Upanishad, which we began studying today, and of course the formless Brahman, which is underlaying it all, as an underlying substratum, or as an all-pervasive presence in all things but not a thing, manifesting all forms but not a form, that which by which the mind cannot comprehend, but which causes the mind to comprehend. As other Upanishads have said, we look to that formless Brahman as the thread running through the necklace of pearls. That is, if you have this knowledge of the inner cosmology of things. If you don't, then maybe that necklace is more a necklace of thorns, and the thread running through it is even more obscured, depending on whether or not your suffering that you're facing off with in this embodied condition is taken on consciously and transcended, or whether you fall victim to procrastination and weakness and become simply a bondslave to the 6 transformations and the 5 desires. 5 desires, basically, Buddha said, earth, air, fire, water, and ether. or if you want to take them in level of gross to subtle, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Or the 6 transformations, as he also talked about, that is birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. Those things are part and parcel of everything in this manifested universe. Yet the supremely unmanifest pervades and underlies it all. That's the great adventure of consciousness, it's been called, or that quest for higher knowledge and culminating in truth, as Krishna says in the Gita, that the aspirant undertakes when they're sincere and when they have equipped themselves fully with these great tools, and sometimes even weapons, they're called, of spiritual life and spiritual practice, like the 4 yogas and the 8 limbs of yoga and various systems of philosophy. As will be evident here in this new Upanishad we're cracking today, the cosmic principles, how cosmic principles lead one to an enlightened state. So many different ways: Samkhya, Tantra, Vedanta, Yoga. But as we've said, all underlying it all is that Advaitic thread, or that all-pervasive presence of Brahman. So that chant that I chanted just now is a form of it is found as the very first sloka of this Upanishad. It's not exactly the way the peace chant, as we call it, one of the 7 peace chants goes, but it's very much similar to that, with even some of the same lines. And therefore you see the Upanishads, that is, the great rishis who, I hate to say wrote the Upanishads, but wrote down the wisdom that came to them from their deepest contemplations, have echoed each other. Sometimes, I think, just by a manner of visiting the same realms of consciousness. Other times actually reading or hearing of what another rishi said and saying, I concur, and here's the way I'm going to put that. So whether they followed the highest form of flattery, as is said, imitation is the highest form of flattery in that case, or whether they actually discovered this way of expressing, they all knew that that same truth was there all the time, and that it only got expressed in different ways. Ekam sat vipra bahuda vedanti, as the Rig Veda says. There are many ways leading to one goal, and many ways of expressing that one, and many religions through which to do it too. But you happen to be here today in the Vedantic atmosphere, Vedanta, the underground river that we've been following, which nourishes everything on the surface, but yet is a sort of hidden movement still in the West, particularly, even in the world. I think in India you hear of Hinduism, and you hear of ancestor worship, and you hear of lots of pujas and rituals and rites. In fact, the Taittiriya Upanishad takes that up, about rites and rituals. But you very seldom hear the word Vedanta, even in India. You'd have to lean more towards the advent of the great soul, Swami Vivekananda. But we just spent almost a week on the American River, one of those great liquid nadis that's flowing across our nation, and dove deep into his song of wisdom. We call it the Swami Vivekananda Vijnana Gita, and had a very enlightening time, concentrating mostly on those things he said or he wrote in letters to the monks back in India when he was in the West, and also to his householder devotees in the West as well, and how that correlated with our Western culture over the last 150 years or so. Actually 150 years since he was born, but not that many years since in 1893 he first appeared here in Chicago at the Parliament of Religions, and began to spread this secret teaching, if you want to call it that, of Vedanta and make it broadcast to everyone. And we know that slow growth is a very good thing. And when you look at his Param Guru, that is Sri Ramakrishna, then you see that in a very short time, really, since his own advent on earth, 1836 to 1886, that he all of a sudden has some 5 million followers now in a very short time, 150 to 200 years being a very short time in the case of a divine incarnation like that, manifesting here on earth and becoming known to such a large cross-section of people, those who are very much ready to pierce through the curtain of Maya. That's another way of putting that. If you want to situate yourself amongst the knowers or the seekers, at least, of truth, then you're going to have to take your place amongst them, and that's going to come about by seeing through the appearances of the world, which are often distractions, as we find out, that take us away from the goal, not towards it. Or, if you want to be more kind to Maya, which is not always a good idea, but sometimes you need to, which takes you in roundabout ways towards the truth. Maya, name, form, time, space, and karma, cause and effect, is another five-fold teaching there, which she's often described as covering your eyes with one hand and then leading you on towards the goal with another. So that a lot of beings are going that way. They're trusting. They're trusting in something insentient, really, but there's a sentiency behind it, with a capital S, and so they maybe go a little bit more roundabout way. All paths lead to the same goal, but some paths go in a roundabout way, or all rivers flow to the ocean, but some rivers have to go underground or stop short of reaching it, or they have to flow into another river, or a stream into a river, or a brook into a stream, into a river, into a tributary, into that great ocean of consciousness. So whatever the case may be, this Vedanta is right now very much still an underground river that needs to be supported by its adherents and sent broadcast and proliferated around across the expanse of the world, all continents. And we see that in the case of beings who are writing in to SRV and asking questions about the nature of reality and basically Brahman, the ultimate, Ishvara, God with form, and how those two interact, the formless reality with the highest form that the mind can conceive of. That would be these great teachers like Buddha and Christ and Krishna. And then those two, plus this state of consciousness called Mahanirvana, or Vedanta calls it Nirvikalpa. That's another great principle that's on the mind of beings, and how to attain that highest state of consciousness. A little bit dichotomous of a saying because it's already theirs, but they don't know it. So how to bring it into out from behind the appearances. And that's why you have to be seeing through appearances, and then all of a sudden you'll have this epiphany or this aha moment, as they call it, in probably when it's least expected. And then other great things too. How to serve God and mankind is a great principle. Mahat Seva, how to serve the great ones and serve their cause, is another great principle which is on the mind of people nowadays. And then these two great wings of the bird, of the soul, meaning Brahmagyan and Prema Bhakti, the highest non-dual wisdom that is the most profound, and then this ecstatic love for God, which we were just hearing about when we were reading the Gospel of Ramakrishna before class started. That you may read many books and study and so forth, but it's all rather futile without that core love of God. That's what's causing you to read and to seek this highest wisdom. So those sometimes called the Maha Vijnana, Alaya Vijnana, these great principles that have been there from time out of mind, and people are continuing to find them lifetime to lifetime, even if they fall away from them, or if in any given lifetime they don't fully realize them. Like Arjuna says in the Gita to Sri Krishna. We were just reading that last week on retreat and talking about it, how the mind is so restless and turbulent, and it's hard to control, and it's hard to attain the goal of yoga, union with reality. And Krishna simply answers, yes, but I concur with you on all of those, and I empathize with you. But it can be controlled, the mind, that is, and all of this can be attained by Adhyasa Yoga, that is, the yoga of constant practice. So, and then we talked in accordance with that with the Buddha's teaching of the drops in the Dharma bucket. The rain's falling everywhere, but you've been given this bucket, you see. And every drop that falls in there is precious, and it mounts up, whereas every drop that falls outside of it goes nowhere. In other words, outside the bucket, life is futile. Inside the bucket is your self-effort. You see, those little drops, those pujas you did, those hours you spent in study, those meditations you did each day, and those acts of service that you did to God and mankind are mounting up, whether you know it or not at first. And then finally, there's a great volume in there, and you can actually call on it. You can resort to it in times of trouble. You can bring it forward, actually, as a Shakti power, and begin to manifest it in your life and in the lives of others. So this is all Vedanta. This is this underground stream, but why leave it underground? As Vivekananda said, and we were reading last week on retreat and talking about it, why give people dirty ditch water to drink when the river of life is flowing by, the river of eternal life, you see? So you must find that great soul within you, and then let divinity exude from there. He said he liked these old English sayings when he came to the West. He says, "Why carry coals to Newcastle?" He says, as Newcastle is where you get coals, right out of the earth. So why bring the earth to you? Why not take Brahman and see it as the earth? Deify everything, every breath, if you can, or at least every day, or failing that, every time you sit down to practice, make sure that it's a practice of divinity inside of yourself, manifesting out for the good of all beings, for the highest good of all beings. Then you're following Sri Krishna's course of expression, divine expression in the Bhagavad Gita. Loka Samgraha, he calls it. He's attained everything. Why does he still keep showing up? Well, because he knows that everything goes in cycles. And once he knew that, like Buddha, he got out of the river of cycles. And then once he got out of the river of cycles and looked back, he saw everyone still caught in the cycles. So he said, well, I guess I have to go back on the merry-go-round too. And this time I'll do it in full consciousness. Vivekananda said last week, and we were saying, that he's such a jovial fellow, this Lord, the God that we worship, such a jovial fellow, and his world is like a bunch of rascally children let out to romp at recess, see. And he's fooling us with bodies and fooling us with brains. He's brainless, but he's fooling us with body and he's fooling us with brains. But this time you won't catch me napping. See? In other words, this time I'll use my brain to find him. It's the greatest game of hide and seek, you see. Where is the Lord hiding today? If I'm on a mountain, then the Lord is white today, see. If I'm in the desert, the Lord is golden, see. And if I'm in the forest, the Lord is green. Where is that divine reality hiding, and how can I ferret it out from its hiding place? So all of this is at the foundation of Vedanta, which is not a religion and not a philosophy alone. It's the combination of both, plus something else. We'd have to say it's Sanatana Dharma, it's the eternal truth, and it's a way of living it besides. So it's got its own axioms that it operates by, and these are eternal axioms. You're not going to be caught napping once you catch a glimpse of that or a whiff of it, because all your senses have been made divine, been made purified. See, body, senses, and mind. So the austerities that you do are those drops in the Dharma bucket. Now, I have set up today for the opening to our Taittiriya Upanishad, because we just finished the Svetāśvatara Upanishad in Portland on my last visit a couple months ago when I was here at the ashram in Portland, and told you we would start with the Taittiriya Upanishad, and indeed we will. And I have come back again to present to you this first chart, which we looked into about 2 years ago, and we said, Swami Vivekananda's 150th centenary is coming. Let's start looking at all the Upanishads in a deeper way. And that is not just the ones that are underlined here, which are those 11 Upanishads that in his very short lifespan in 700 AD, approximately, Adi Shankaracharya commented on and made authoritative. But also the other 99. But in this case, both the Svetāśvatara Upanishad and the Taittiriya Upanishad, that is those Upanishads which we were looking into and finished over the last 3 years or so we studied, plus this one we're about to embark on, you find them as a part of the Yajurveda, particularly the Krishna Yajurveda, that's divided into 2 portions. There you see Svetāśvatara Upanishad and Taittiriya Upanishad, so that we know where to find them, in what Veda to find them. It's probably important for us to know that, so that we don't leave any information out of our study, that we can quote our scriptures in the same way that any other person in any other religion can quote their scriptures and cite where they're from. So there you find it in that Yajurveda, that is of the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. You'll find that each one of them has a certain amount. 10 in the Rig Veda only, and 51 divided into in the Shukla Yajurveda and the Krishna Yajurveda. The Samaveda has 16, and the Atharva Veda has 31. And all of these are very profound. In fact, again, last week at the retreat, I just started I-Chinging from all of these other 99 Upanishads, and everyone was quite amazed at the variety of deep, profound wisdom were found in these affectionately called minor Upanishads. You could just remember that. We just went through and began to select certain paragraphs by merely opening the pages and reading the English translation and finding all of these variety of Jnana Yoga teachings, that Dharma that is there, that are not as familiar to us as the 11 underlined Upanishads here. So just want to start out by making a mention of that, and leaving this chart up for those of you here and at home. Welcome to the live streaming audience, by the way, because we were on retreat. We missed a couple Sundays, and now this Saturday and this Sunday, that is today and tomorrow, we're back with you, as we will be next week. All 4 of the classes live streaming on these next 2 weekends are Taittiriya Upanishad for you. And it's a good time to join in if you're a new watcher or viewer, because then you get to start from the beginning and go through these slokas one by one. Now, as I already said, the first sloka pretty much is this, or the opening of chapter 1. Chapter 1 really has 12 lessons. It's a different setup that this Upanishad has been placed into, in a sense, because you usually have chapters in most of the Upanishads in the English translations, but this one has been broken into lessons, so the lessons are inside of chapters. So each sloka, which is in the Taittiriya Upanishad's case quite long, each sloka is a lesson, and you'll see why as we get into it. This first one we don't need to spend a lot of time on, because as I just chanted, Sham no Vishnu Rakramaha Namo Brahmane Namastu Vayu, the Sham no Mitra Sham Varunaha is the beginning of this, the beginning sloka, and you see it there ending, of course, with Om, peace, 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 so it's affectionately called one of those 7 peace chants that all of us here in this room probably know by heart. I think many of us have chanted, have memorized those, and also the English. And then we've also memorized, most of us, 6 meditation chants, because I've instituted a new kind of way of looking at memorization, and that we have 7 peace chants traditionally, but I've selected from the Upanishads 7 meditation chants now, and 7 wisdom chants, and 7 universal chants, or light chants they're called. And those are 7 times 4 is 28. So now some of us, a few of us, can recite almost all 28 of those right in a row in Sanskrit and English, both. And to sit there and listen to that is wonderful. You're just inundated with the Vedantic wisdom. Bring the ancient rishis forward and home to this eternal moment which they live in. You bring yourself into the eternal moment too. But more wonderful would be to have the whole classroom chanting that out loud, say at a puja or at a retreat. So I have those printed out. If any of you want the newest and latest, then come up and ask me and I'll give them to you. We handed them all out at the retreat last week, and I pointed them out. So these 7 wisdom chants, and the 7 peace chants, and the 7 meditation chants, and the 7 light or universal chants, I'm calling them. We're also thinking there could be 7 sadhana chants, and 7 others too. So there's no end to this, but it's a nice way of bite by bite eating the elephant, as we say. And this is the only way to do it, and begin to put our mind in a place where you're walking down the streets of the Mayak city and you're seeing nothing but Brahman, because your mind is constantly inside of this Vedic lore and Vedic wisdom, which is so both profound and profuse. There's no end to it, and there's no fathoming how deep it can go. So therefore you become a professional diver. See, I'm saying at the retreat in meditation, the kids, you go under, see, and then they can't go under. They're like a dog swimming around on the surface, but you have to learn that tuck and dive method, you see, to pierce the surface of the pool of water. And that's what you have to do in meditation. You have to pierce the surface. So you have to take a deep breath and dive deep, O mind, into the ocean of God's beauty, as Kabir says in his beautiful poem. And then you can find the gem of love there, and other gems without number lying at the bottom. Otherwise you'll never see them. You might intimate them or believe in them, but you can't have full faith in them because you haven't seen them with your own eyes and picked them up and possessed them for yourself. So in those kinds of analogies you have the Vedic wisdom also explained and described to you. And so this first chant then is that way. I really have put up this chart then to show you a little bit of what is there in that chant. May Mitra, Varuna, Aryaman, Indra, Brihaspati, the all-pervading Vishnu, be propitious to us and grant us welfare and bliss. I bow down to Brahman in loving reverence. O Vayu, I bow down to thee in adoration. Thou verily art Brahman perceptible. Vayu is, you could say, yes, it's just air, but then air has a divine presence behind it, for one thing. And it's life force, really. It's kind of the god of prana lingering there behind air, and you're breathing in and out all the time, and you're not aware of the life force. You're just aware that you breathe, hopefully. Many people aren't even aware of that. And that's why they're given the breathing exercise when they come to Buddhism or Vedanta, that is yoga. And basically they begin, I have a breath here, and then that starts the ball of consciousness or awareness, you might say, rolling right away. And if you follow the momentum of that ball, you can dive deep inside with it. You can let it roll on into the depths of your own consciousness. So, but behind even that teaching, you see, of vayu, air, prana, there's what about other atmospheres where a different kind of air is breathed? Not just the air of heights, as the Chinese poet Tu Fu says, breathless air of heights, you see. But the air where you don't breathe. It sounds a little bit contrary, doesn't it? But the yogi gets into kumbhaka and stops breathing, like you do in deep sleep. And then the breath, 240 breaths a day turn into 125 breaths a day, and in parts of that, you're not breathing at all. My doctor, talking about blood sugar, he told me, well, you're not the only one that has low blood sugar when you sleep, like if you're a diabetic. See, everyone does. Some people go so low as 40, which is almost death. So even normal people without the problem of diabetes have these lows. So I was interested to see that, not necessarily just for medical terms either, but to how it dovetails in with this idea of non-breath, non-thought, and non-heart rate, just all the zeros that are so profound, the deep zeros. So you find that there's a air, a vayu. That's why you bow to him in loving reverence, and you call him the manifest Brahman, because you're moving through him, you're breathing him, and you're doing that either all in the waking state, in the dreaming state. You have a different kind of vayu there, and in deep sleep state, you have a different kind of vayu. The absence of vayu is one of the proofs of truth, is the absence of something. We'll get to that in a minute. If something is missing, then you know that the game's afoot, see? Because you are everything, and you know that somewhere inside of yourself intuitively. And then you see something missing, and you say, what's missing? And you go after it. See? My child was just here a little while ago. Where is he? Is he a typical proof of the truth of the child's existence, isn't it? So why aren't you using that same proof of truth with God? God was here. I know he was here a minute ago. Where did he go? That is, when did my mind forget that there was the presence of God, we call Brahman, or Allah, or Almighty Father? When did my mind forget that? The absence of that should prove to me that it has a presence, you see. There's an opposite to everything. You can't just go on talking all about relativity this, relativity that, and never mention reality. You're fair to every other part, every other side of the creation, by giving it cause and effect, by giving it this and that, by giving it duality. You see, you're paying deference to it all the time, but you're not going to pay deference to reality as the opposite of relativity? What's wrong with that? You see, what kind of a scientist are you? So the absence of a thing infers its presence, and its presence is going to be subtle, maybe subtler than the subtlest, Anaranian, subtler than the subtlemost. There's no word for that in English, subtler, of the subtlest. I have to figure out 4 words in order to describe even a semblance of that in English. But if you just say Anaranian, then the seers go, oh yes, you see, and they're immediately in that state of something that's beyond the beyond. So there's this inner atmosphere that you're going into. Even when your lungs stop breathing, vayu is still there. So this is how you would start, just to take one of these words of a so-called God whom you don't believe in, and begin to ruminate on its presence. If you start out saying, I don't believe in that, put it down, then you miss so many shades of being, of your own being. You've shut yourself off to divine reality, and to all the stages that lead you into it, see. So, I shall declare that my reverence for Brahman, and I shall bow down to thee, O Vayu, with adoration. Why am I putting those two together? And thou art the right, thou art the true, thou art the beneficial. See, like Swami Vivekananda used to say, there's good, but then there's better, but then there's best. See? There's always a triputi lurking in there somewhere for you to find your way through the duality, you see, and get to that third point. May that universal being, entitled Vayu, preserve me. May he preserve the teacher. May Brahman protect us all, teacher, student, and teachings. See, so there's that triputi again, the three bodies of the Buddha, if you want to call it that, or the triple gem. You find it everywhere, and, profusely in Vedanta. So if you're still looking at this chart as I work our way through this, let's take its quote here. So here you see the image, basically, where all of these beings that you just read in the very first sloka of the Taittiriya Upanishad are given an artist's rendering. See, there's Prajapati, there's Brihaspati, and there's Vayu, and there's Vishnu. When you say Vishnu, you're going to infer Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, aren't you? Because the Trinity, again, there's another great threesome there. Ganesha is there, Hanuman is there, the 7 Saptarishis are there with all of their teachings. That's going to be important for the Taittiriya Upanishad, because you're going to start to learn what's called Vyahritis. Vyahritis are, and really infer the 7 worlds. And the first 3 of them are, at the time of the ancient writings of this Upanishad, were Bhur Bhuva Svaha. And then the fourth had just been uncovered by this great rishi. And so you're talking about the discovery, or we would probably say the rediscovery, of these kingdoms of heaven within us, if you want, or these great lokas or worlds, each one containing hundreds and thousands of other worlds inside of them, that they're the cross-section, and each one provided over by a rishi, Sapta Rishi. See. So there's the Sapta Rishis. Of course, there in the middle is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and so this is a good artist's rendering of as far as you can put into form without running out of room, of all of these beings that we find saluted in the first sloka of the Taittiriya Upanishad. All the divine powers, if you will, of the Godhead. But there in the center is this, depicts the all-pervasive Brahman, and it, along with Ishvara, its highest form, it too comes into form. If you want to get down into the dualities, there's the gods, and there's the demons, that is the suras and asuras, the gods and demigods, you might say. And there at the foot of everything is Sri Krishna, the avatar, and Arjuna, which really is humanity. Arjuna represents awakening humanity, because Arjuna himself, unlike his older brother Yudhishthira, is not in knowledge of the Dharma yet. He's a great warrior and a person with great integrity and honesty, a very moral person, but Krishna is giving him the teaching, not his oldest brother. His oldest brother is already one of the most dharmic beings in the world at the time. So Arjuna is really a good representative or symbol for humanity and how they're awakening to this higher truth. Whether you put it in terms of form or whether you put it in terms of formlessness, you should probably be doing both. Or whether you put it in terms of time or you put it in terms of an eternal moment, you should probably be doing both. Because then you can understand the subtle dichotomies of Maya, and then you can find the meaning behind God with and without form. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, God is with form and God is beyond form as well. However, is also beyond both form and formlessness as concepts. See? So the mind has to stop thinking, right? You go to school and they say, put on your thinking cap. And you go to Vedanta and say, take off your thinking cap. See? Time to stop thinking now. Now that you've reasoned it out, hopefully with your thinking cap, you reasoned it all out. You got the practical, you got the rational, you got everything in order. Your ducks in a row, as they say. Now take it off and look at the world. And it was looked one way when you put on the thinking cap, which is probably why you put it on, to make some sense out of it. Now that you have it in order, take it off and see what the mind is like now. See, murky waters before, clear waters after. Roiling surface before, peaceful, glabrous surface after. So that is this epitomized very well by Krishna and Arjuna there. And at the bottom there, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouths everywhere, with ears everywhere, that exists, pervading everything in the many universes. Oh, really? Many universes? The Westerner says. I thought there was only one. Although now even science is talking about a universe inside of a universe. And higher than this personal Brahman is the Supreme Brahman, who attracts intelligent souls towards the highest goal of mukti. Oh, there is something as freedom, absolute freedom. Without feet, it goes everywhere. Without eyes, it sees everything. Without ears, it hears all. Though this impersonal Brahman is changeless, it seemingly grows beyond its own nature to formulate the objective universe. By the grace of the personal God, the aspiring soul becomes free of sorrows and transcends all desires. Then the Rishi says, I know this omnipresent one, who is concealed in the hearts of all beings, and by knowing which one becomes free of birth and death. Oh, there's a cycle. You get out of the cycle of birth and death. Each sentence, if you look at it at the surface, it just goes by and the mind just goes, that's pretty, that's beautiful. How novel, how interesting, how strange. See, some people would say. But if you sit with a group of like-minded people, with a soul who has contemplated the scriptures, called a teacher or an acharya, then basically you will have all of this unwrapped for you. And it's just like you're sitting in front of your own mind, and it's unwrapping it for you. Or you might prefer it in the musical version, you see, and you'd want to say something like this. Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Ekameva Dvaitayam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Vasudeva Sarvam, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, Vasudeva Sarvam. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Atmani Vishwadarshanam, Manmayi Mamum Pashrita, Vasudeva Sarvam. Vasudeva is the Supreme Being. Sarvam means everything, all-containing. So it's all Brahman. Everything you can see is a manifestation or expression of Brahman. From as Vivekananda says, from the highest Supreme Being right down to the veriest worm is all Brahman. And therefore smear that collyrium of Vedantic insight on your eyes and then see it and sing Vasudeva Sarvam. Sing, the divine is all-pervading, nothing else exists. Ekameva Dvaitayam. Sing, Suridam Sarvabhutanam, though invisible you appear as the creator of the universe. Sing, intimate communion with the Atman confers the supreme blessing, Atmani Vishwadarshanam. And sing, we take complete refuge in thee, Manmayi Mamu Pashrita, Vasudeva Sarvam. That's right out of the Gita. And it's just 5 lines I liked. So I decided to knit them all together. They appear sporadically through the 18 chapters of the Gita. And so to this day, like last week at the retreat, when I chanted the Gita in the morning in Sanskrit and in English, I would come across that, you see. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Lord of all the worlds, Vasudeva Sarvam, click, you see. And the connections are fired up again. That is, you can't fire up if you haven't made them. So make the connections, and go on and make another one, go on and make another one. And then when it comes time to fire them up, that one you made will be able to fire when you come upon something in your life or in the future. then you will find you'll have a lot of these aha moments. See, like the man who saw the great bear in the woods, he had a Kodiak moment. You see. So the Lord is everything. So that's why the chart is called the immanent and transcendent reality. You have to know that Brahman is just not only transcendent. That is a great thing to know. Most people don't know that. But once you find out that there is this ultimate formless reality called Brahman or Allah or Almighty Father, then you should also know that it expresses itself here. It's immanent. It's right here in this very moment. It's a very beautiful way of expressing it. Or reminds me of another way of singing it musically. Jo kuch hai so tu hai tujhse humne dil ko lagaya. Jo kuch hai so tu hai tujhse humne dil ko lagaya. I have finally understood, O Lord, that all that exists art Thou. You are in everything. All hearts are fused in Thee. Everything that exists art Thou. So, Jo Kuchahai, a gajal, beautiful sort of semi-classic, devotional, non-dual truth wisdom song of India. Try and explain it all as one. So, therefore, we find this first sloka of the Taittiriya Upanishad quite rich already, don't we? Let's look at another way of seeing it. In a chart we've seen before, but this time we will pass by it fairly quickly, just enough to say that if you're talking about salutations to Vishnu, to Vayu, to Brahma, to Shiva, and so forth, then you'll find that this great Trinity has a very powerful presence right at the very hub or apex of God with form. That everything that flows out in the form of dynamic Shakti is flowing through them as a light at their back. Brahman is like a great light at their back, and it's flowing through the Trinity, and then it flows through their divine senses and out and becomes the worlds. The closer you get to the Trinity, the more splendorific will be the light that is shining there. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha is one way of putting that, but another way is Na Tatra Surya Bhati Na Chandra Tarakam Nema Vidyuta Bhanti Kuto Yamagni. It's not the light of the moon, Chandra, nor is it the light of the sun, see, nor is it the light of fire, see, that shines there. It's not the light of lightnings. It's not the lesser glares, see, the tiny little twinklings and so forth of the stars in the distance. That one light shining, all of these shine. By its light, all this is made radiant. Om, peace, peace, peace. See? So that's one of our 7 light mantras, of course, that we're talking about. Some of you might already know it. Na tatra surya bhati na chandra tarakam. Nemo vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagnihi. Not Agni fire, not Chandra moon, not Surya sun, and not Vidyut, the god of lightning. Behind all of them is this one light shining, and it makes all of their lights possible. See? That light could not shine without that presence of the light of consciousness, the light of intelligence, the light of awareness. And so therefore I put my mind on that each time I sit to meditate, and everything else, all other lights become aligned with that. All hearts become connected with that. And therefore you have the beauty of both sloka and songs, both music, the music of scripture and the music of recited words. And that's important, recited words. They're about to take us on a big tour of the word and how significant it is. So there you see the I just wanted to show this. Of course, if you're thinking in terms of song and devotion, then you would say this. The Master Sri Ramakrishna says, the Bhakta feels like God is one entity and the world is another. Therefore, God reveals himself to him as a person. So the highest supreme person would be that manifestation of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva called an avatar. And there you see those great beings, like I said, Krishna, Christ, Buddha, and so forth, are emanating out of that Trinity. Classic tradition would be out of Vishnu come the Dasa avatars, the 10 great incarnations. But Shaivism has its line of avatars and avatars too. And of course, the Divine Mother reality, Shakti, or Shaktism, speaks of Divine Mother as the mother of all the gods and all the goddesses, and the avatars as her children. But if you were looked at it more like this scripture, you see Taittiriya Upanishad, you might want to put it like this. Sri Ramakrishna says, the Jnani, through his discrimination, realizes that the ego and the universe are both illusory and perceives Brahman in his own consciousness. So you go the road of bhakti, that one wing, or the road of jnana, the other wing, you'll find out that probably better to put them both together, because if you put them both together at the level of devotion to the Trinity and at the level of this highest reality, then you might find Nirguna Brahman. You might go from the waking state to the dreaming state to the visionary state and deep sleep state, and not just go back again in cycles, but you might actually pierce through the subtle granthi here, the subtle web or subtle knot, and reach a state beyond deep sleep, where your awareness is intact, as it always is, and always was, and always will be, but you have yet to see that for yourself in this life, in this body. That's like the final challenge for the aspirant, is to, if you can see it here, you can see it anywhere type of mantra. See, I've pierced through Maya at its thickest, and I can do it anywhere in any of the worlds. If I find myself with my ancestors and they're talking nonsense, I can say, well, guess what? Poof. You see, and penetrate right through it and take them with me. And they will be awestruck, you see. So I need to be able to see through it at its densest level. That's why beings are born on earth. When Sri Ramakrishna says God is born, the human being is born on earth for no other reason than to realize God, that's pretty much what he means. God is already his own true being, but he has to realize it here amidst all of this show, amidst all of this appearance, amidst all of these problems, amidst the 6 passions, amidst the 8 fetters, amidst the 9 antarayas, amidst the 5 kleshas. Shall I go on? There are lots of rascally playmates at recess amongst that romping horde of children let out of school, you see, let out of school into the world of experiences, you see, and having their experiences and reaping their various karmas as a result. You might even get to Turyatita, beyond Turya. They say there's even a state beyond that. So, as the Svetāśvatara was so good at teaching us, there is a personal reality, and then there's an impersonal reality. That is saguna with attributes, nirguna beyond attributes, and that's a refreshing course of teaching in the Vedanta, because Advaita Vedanta is waiting for you to discover behind the scenes, no doubt, and they're the highest impersonal teachings of Buddhism, and the sampragyata, the seedless samadhis of yoga waiting for you, but you haven't filled in your knowledge about the cosmos yet, then that kind of experience is going to be short-lived. You'll be pulled back down out of that highest samadhi once you see it. And that can mean either in your meditation or at the time of your death, at the time of your rebirth, you see. You're pulled back down out of that highest realization because there's something missing, as we said earlier, you see. Something missing I didn't account for, that I didn't espy. So I need to go back there and find out what that is and fill it in. Backpedaling, backtracking is not a good idea in most cases. You should probably best is to take one step at a time up that staircase of ascension, inner ascension that is, and know each level, and then not have to go back later and look for missing pieces or missing wisdom. In that way, you see this chart is well outlined, because down here at the bottom are pieces that you may be missing. That is, maybe you didn't know that earth goes with odor, which goes with excretion, which goes with smelling, or that water goes with flavor, which goes with procreation, which goes with tasting, that fire goes with visibility, that goes with moving, that goes with seeing, that air goes with acting, that goes with tangibility, that goes with feeling, and that ether goes with audibility, that goes with speaking, that goes with hearing. So you have 20 things there. That's 4 times 5. So your outer elements, your outer senses in waking state, and your inner senses and your inner elements in the visionary or dreaming state. See, those are all connected. If you know that, then when you get outside the body, you can follow the connections and find your way. Milarepa says, you will find your way in that case. If not, then you may stumble, see, come across some aspect of these aspects of your being that were not smoothed out, that are still laden with some sort of karma, gross or subtle, like having drowned in a past lifetime with water, or having not made it past your ancestors, which isn't a very high heaven, it's a lower heaven. So you find yourself relegated to the cycles, see. And your whole life you were fortunate enough to hear about Brahman beyond cycles, about Buddha getting out of cycles, and the great souls coming from beyond cycles. And then you didn't take that information that you heard and work it into your own experience by meditating and connecting. See, Taittiriya Upanishad gets into this deeper in other ways that we can look at it, not just the Pancha that I've been teaching you the past few years and emphasizing. Can you say 5? You see 5 toes, 5 fingers, 5 senses, 5 inner senses, 5 inner elements, as these are all pretty much saying, and then a 5-fold mind. If you put in the great mind Mahat with it, then you've got 25 right there. See? So that's kind of how we've been studying it, and then dissolving one into the other until you find yourself at the great mind. That's the Trinity. See, and that's why we sing all the time to the Trinity. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Deva Param Brahma, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Why am I singing that? Does anyone know? Does anyone know what today is? Today is Guru Purnima. It's the holy day for all the great teachers, and for that one great teacher, which Vivekananda says is not a personality, but is a principle. He made it really clear and really safe for us to follow the path of Guru Bhakti by making a declaration like that. Guru is not a personality, it's a principle, and in 70, 80, 90% of the beings we've seen come over from India, and even the beings that we've seen in Christendom as we grew up, we found a lot of charlatans, a lot of spurious teachers, a lot of questionable teachers, a lot of pretenders and posers, and very few authentic beings. Dharma teachers would be the first thing you'd look for. Then you'd start looking towards the Jagat Guru, the great teacher. And when you found the great teacher, you'd find out, wait, what's there, you see? Oh, no ego, I can't find it, you see. You can't pin him down, you see. You'll find the principle of Brahman in that Guru, with a capital G. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara. It's the Trinity. You're talking about the purest, the most sattvic of all minds. And then those great souls that are emanating out of the Trinity and returning to the Trinity. And many beings that then, of course, know themselves to be beyond the Trinity, they would pass through the Son to the Father. This is basically the Son for us, highest Son, S-O-N, I'm saying, in Hinduism. And you're to get to the Father, that is, to the Divine Mother, or to the ultimate reality, or Advaita, or Sampragyata, or Nirvikalpa, or Mahanirvana, through that. And when you do, then you can come up and down the amber stairs of birth and death, like Sri Aurobindo said. Or do it like Dalai Lama did, 13 or 14 lifetimes in a row as a bodhisattva, and know yourself. Thou shalt know yourself. Or thou shalt know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Or if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So today on Guru Purnima is a very good time to crack an Upanishad, and you probably couldn't start with much better one than Taittiriya. This is going to take us through food and prana in a way that no other Upanishad that exists does. And that's coming. But then first it wants you to know about these vyahritis. It's a new word probably for the SRV Sangha and for many of the Westerners, but these sacred utterances, bur, bhuvaha, svaha, these are vyahritis, they're sacred utterances, and out of them come the great conjunctions. In how many ways? Yes, right, 5. The 5 great connections are called. So we're going to learn about this dissolution of the mind stream that we've been doing from another direction, from another school of Vedanta, from another rishi, in the way that it's put. And so stay fastened in, you see, to your seat, and be present. And over the coming year or two it's going to take us to go through this. This isn't being done very often in the West, that you get to go through a whole set of scriptures. You just have to take the long view, see, and be as present as you can inside of your busy life. Well, you see there then these 20 connections being connected to the individual to the collective mind to the cosmic mind, or the Trinity. And then if you do that, then you understand the teachings of projection, sustenance, and withdrawal, of everything. You see how it all tumbles out like romping school children, and then how it's all called back after recess to its strict disciplinarian, you see, of your own consciousness. And enough playing, enough recklessness, enough chaos, enough problem. See, I'll call you back to the simple, to the beautiful, to the truthful, to the harmonious, to the homogeneity, see, of your own being. In and out like that. And I'll teach you how to get beyond the cycles if you don't want to tumble out next time at recess. You can become teacher's pet. That's what the Guru says, you see. So yes, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara. Other beautiful verses are there that even about our Vedanta. Sarva Shruti Shiroratna Samudvasita Murtaye Vedantam Duja Suryaya Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chaitanya Shashvata Shanto Vyomatita Niranjana Hindu Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And the verse everyone knows, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Deva Maheshwara, Gurur Eva Param Brahma, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And then Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim, which is what I started out chanting this class when we started this morning. We salute the leader of our souls, that supreme guru, who is a principle, not a personality, but who manifests through these pure souls called acharyas, gurus, especially those jagat gurus, those ones that teach the world this perennial truth, you see, and leave the lower knowledge where it lies and helps you in the realm of higher knowledge. That's Vedanta. It's very hard for me to ever leave a sloka behind. You see, I feel like I've never done it justice, and so I want to keep at it and keep at it and keep at it until everyone's either sleeping or I look up. I look up and there's just skeletons there. Ooh, how long have I been going? Anyway, so beautiful, these teachings. Let's go on to sloka 2 then. Sigh. We proceed to explain the science of phonetics. Amazing how quickly they jump, you see, to it after that beautiful introduction. It deals with vocalic sounds, interesting word, accent, pitch, quantity, force required for articulation, modulation, and the conjunction of the letters. Well, I must say that we are not ancient Sanskrit scholars or pundits here in the West, and we'll never speak the way Hindu vocal cords speak the slokas, but we can memorize them, do our svadhyaya in that case, satisfy the niyama of yoga called svadhyaya, and we can learn the meaning of individual words. We went back and looked at Vivekananda's sayings about that last week, and we actually sang the Guru Stotram too as an ending to the whole retreat. That was on Wednesday morning. So he said in his letters, he said, make sure that you learn the Sanskrit very specifically, word by word, with good English translation. So that's pretty much what our founder, Lex Hickson, when he attended upon Swami Nikhilananda in New York, and myself, when I attended upon Swami Sheshananda and some other swamis here in the West, have been doing with the Sanskrit. We've been teaching you basic pronunciation and intonation, and as best as we can, and then concentrating more on the meanings of the words, because I've often said, and I think it's a great teaching and a great thing to know, is that there are many words in Sanskrit that are not available to you in English. These words have had to have been, you can't say really invented or coined. They were always there in the word itself. In Om, all words were there. In the deep sleep state, where all seeds were, there were words for the seeds. You see, because the expression of it is how it gets out. You see, when you're speaking, you have to know that. When you know that you're expressing the profundity of timeless principles, then maybe you'll stop talking so much about mundane, superficial things, and you'll begin to consider your voice a sacred tool. See, this chakra will open here, the fifth, sixth, and then sixth and seventh will open as a result. You will never open that sixth chakra until I can't become single, until the speech becomes articulate and truthful and profound. See, so. Anyway, that point I'm making is that these words in Sanskrit are so important. You either have to put a string of English words together to define it, or there just will be no way of thinking about it, because the West hasn't pondered past lifetimes yet. You see, Buddhism and its idea of past lifetimes, and Vedanta and Hinduism and Krishna in the Gita, and telling Arjuna that he's lived many lifetimes, and they both have, and that he's become aware of his, and so forth. All of those things that occur to you over and over again in the Vidyadhara, you see, in the expression of highest wisdom, all infer these words that if you didn't have them, you wouldn't be able to understand the language of spirituality. Sanskrit is the language of spirituality. They call it Deva Bhasa, Deva Vyasa, the language of the gods. See? And so a whole cross-section of ancient society came to illumination through this language. So not only are the words themselves powerful, but they infer the eternity of Brahman, the eternal, the Word. In the beginning was the Word. Word was with God, Word was God. That's three different phases of the Word Christ was trying to explain to John. So you begin to step back in terms of the Word. So they want you to know, they want to explain to you the science of phonetics, vocalic sounds, the accent, the pitch, the quantity, the force of it required for articulation, how it modulates, and the conjunction of the letters. See how they come together. Conjunction of letters alone is very important because, if you leave, like Gaudapada says in his Karika, if you leave the A of Om and the U of Om and the M of Om disconnected, then there's no realization for you. So how do the A, U, and M join to become the Word? You have to understand that if you understand that, you'll understand how you're supposed to join your waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state into one thing. You're thinking of it as three different things through your psychology. You're thinking of it as three different states of awareness through your everyday life. Your religion is telling you that heaven, earth, and hell are three different levels of awareness, but nobody's telling you that this is all connected and ultimately it's one. That's Ekameva Dvaitayam, as we just sang in that song. That the initial original condition of the Word was ever one. Sometimes you just say not two, so that you won't go towards the dualities. Now, although it's quite an eyeful, it will also be quite a mouthful for me. And I'm not going to take you through it because I think a couple years ago we went through this in Portland quite in detail. But you can see here, in accordance with the second sloka, here's the way the Tantra would put it. And, you might not want to jot it all down or anything, or you can come up later and look at it. At the break, we'll leave this chart maybe for the live viewing viewers so they can see it over time, over 15 minutes. Basically, just know that Tantra thinks of it in 6 different ways. What? Brahmagyan. That word that my teacher never tired of using from the podium. The West needs an injection of Brahmagyan. See? And he was there to give it to them. And I was there to receive it. See, whenever he talked, I was fully tuned into that, trying to imbibe that and get inoculated against Maya by this medicine, this best medicine of Brahmagyan. So here you see how the Tantras put it. With self-purification achieved, liberation proceeds via extracting the essence of the scriptures and gaining an intellectual conviction leading to mature spiritual discrimination. Tantra, the darshan of the heart, is telling you about Jnana Yoga, basically. In other words, to get that pure heart, you're going to have to purify the mind. If the mind isn't purified, you'll love everything, but you're loving it all in the wrong way. You love the world, you love Jesus in the wrong way, you'll love your wife and husband in the wrong way. Wrong way means incomplete, means unfulfilling, means unsatisfactory, means something left to chance, means emptiness at the root without the full culmination, fullness, satisfaction. But if you purify that organ called the mind, nahi gnana sadrishyam pavitram iha vidyate, as Krishna says, then it's the greatest purifier in existence, and you will understand the language of the heart. You will love thy Lord, thy God, with thy whole heart and with thy whole mind. See, so that one sentence is important. Self-purification first, then liberation proceeds through extracting the essence of the scriptures. So just like we're doing today, you go in and you look at a sentence, and we're in the West, let's look at this sloka. No, let's look at the sentence. No, let's look at this word. No, let's look at the particle of the word. See? And all of a sudden you've gone 4 levels deep into something that you thought didn't have any depths, or was just an intellectual depth to you. You learned a few things and you say, oh, I know more than that person now. See, but you don't know nothing yet. So you have to go that deep into these particular words, and these words are deep. They are filled. You see, they're full of everything that you're seeking, including fulfillment itself. So it leads you to a conviction and spiritual and mature spiritual discrimination. Then it goes on to say, Tantra, the master of rites and rituals, goes on to say, lifeless mechanical rites and rituals do not work. If rubbing the body with ashes could bring liberation, then village dogs could have it. So it's found out that rituals are good for only certain things. That is, for helping you to deify the external. But if you don't go from the external to the internal, from the A to the U of Om, then you're not making the full connection, and your knowledge is then suspect or incomplete. And it will be that gap in your knowledge that robs you of your awareness between the moment of your death and the moment of your next rebirth, or avoiding the moment of your next rebirth, if you want to, you see. Or coming into your next rebirth in full knowledge. Should a man be reborn? Vivekananda was asked. I certainly hope he will not until he can do so in full knowledge. Full knowledge of his awareness. See? So let's look at some of the ways in which, briefly and quickly in the 10 minutes left in this half, Kala, Tattva, Bhuvana, Varna, Pada, and Mantra. In other words, aspects, categories, regions, letters, words, and utterances is how that's put in English. Kala is a manifestation, is in the nature of reality. Kala, with its 5 main forms, presides over all cosmic functions, pure, mixed, and impure. What are the 5? Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Maheshwara, and Sadashiva. Those are called kalas, or time. Kala means time. Or kalas means phases of time. So anything that happens in time and in phases of time is presided over by these 5 great deities. How many? Can you say? 5. It simultaneously assists the unmanifest to transition into the manifest and acts as a guide for all seekers of self-realization. Kalas is that cosmic principle of the 12 higher spandas, that is beyond the Purusha, the individual soul, which assists everything into, which assists the unmanifested wisdom in becoming manifest in the world. All of this is wisdom. I mean, you probably can't argue that the wisdom is here in the sloka, but that's a manifestation of the mind of the rishis. But the book itself, as an article, is also a form of your intelligence. And the words on the page, the ink used to print it, the paper, the tree it was, all of that is a manifestation of your own intelligence coming from inside out. See? So Kalas is all about that. You see, it's time and phases of time, and its presiding deities. I'm giving this to you in a heartbeat, as you say. It's a cram course. You see. Let's look at the second principle, Tattva. Beginning with the elements and proceeding to Shiva and Shakti, consciousness as experience is made up of worlds, bhuvanas, which are the phases of existence consisting of tattvas. Tattvas then would depend on kalas. Worlds depend on words. We don't know this. We think the world is nature, 5 elements and so forth. But the 5 elements have names, see, and they had to be specified in the mind of God, see, and connected. It had to be that I think of a word for a world, and then I can have the 7 worlds. Aren't the Vyahritis, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, and so forth, aren't those utterances? Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, Mahar. You see, they're utterances, they're Vyahritis, and they're, every time you say them, they're inferring a conjunction of things, usually of 5 principles. The adhering power, what keeps things together, is in the combination of kalas and bhuvana. The cement that holds it all together that you're looking for. it wouldn't be Brahman. God doesn't hold it all together because God is so widely spread everywhere. There's no togetherness in it, you see. It's vast, it's conditionless. It's beyond words. In the beginning was the Word, and it was with God, but then finally it was God. When it was God, that's where the Word gave up all its secrets and decided not to hold anything in storage anymore. Nothing in potential, and it just merged in that. Let's look at the tattvas there real quick. Physical tattvas are what? Earth, fire, air, ether. Earth, fire, water, air, and ether. How many are those? 5. Then odor, flavor, visibility, tangibility, and audibility. How many is that? 5. Excreting, procreating, locomotion, handling, and speaking. How many is that? 5. Smelling, tasting, seeing, feeling, and hearing. How many is that? 5. So there's your 5 physical tattvas, each coming out of each other in quintuplication process. Let's look at the psychical tattvas. Mind, thought, intellect, ego, soul, cosmic laws, the phases of time, there's kalas, time itself, kala, higher knowledge, subtle matter, that's unmanifested prakriti, and attraction, raga. Those are called the higher spandas. In other words, if you go 5 elements, 5 subtle elements, 5 gross elements, 5 subtle senses, 5 subtle elements, and then mind, 5-fold mind, and then you find unmanifested prakriti. Right about there you'll start into the higher tattvas, you see. They're called spandas, or vibrating spheres. These are the kingdoms of heaven within you. Spiritual tattvas. How many? You're going to hear me doing this a lot, so get used to it. Because we really don't know anymore in the world. I'm not talking just about America. In India, we really don't know the secret of 5s. Quintuplication process is an ancient thing. And as soon as the awakened soul, or the illumined soul, the past master, sees it in this world again, it goes, right, I remember now. And doesn't say anything about it. It's just common knowledge to them. But for the rest of us who haven't heard of it yet, we go, huh, what's that again? You mean there's a connection? And you were living a scattered life prior to that. I mean, if anyone happens to get their mind together by any other method than quintuplication, and there are methods to do it with, then they'll look back on it and say, oh, I see, it was all in 5s, you see. So no matter how you cut it or look at it, that's what you're going to see. The 5 spiritual tattvas are inner guidance, sadakya, spiritual wisdom, bindu, bindu kala nadatita, bindu nada kalatita, we just sang in the Guru Stotram. Non-duality, that is pure non-dual wisdom, Shuddha Vidya. Primal sound, nada, and the supreme deity called Ishvara. These are the upper 5 of the higher spandas, if you look at the 36 cosmic principles, which you should, because this is what, Tantra is: Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shaktism, Ganapatya, and Saurism. How many? 5 great sects, you see. Tantra is pretty much made of that, and it means God with form. So they're not just saying, oh, let's just go worship God with form and we'll be okay. Saying, we better know how God with form works. It's intricate. There's plenty of there for you to study if you're bored. See, you may become overwhelmed looking at it at first, but if you are ever a student and you are interested in a topic, and you can possibly get interested in the topic of your own self, then you'll find plenty here to study and to put together and to have insights and to have realization and then to get enlightenment with. Plenty. What's holding you up is the question. The 5 kleshas. It's one of the 5s that's holding you up, you see. Ignorance of this, attachment and aversion to or for this, you see. Egotism and clinging to life, clinging to a little atomic structure. It's see, as if it were real. With 1 minute left, and I may take you a little bit longer. In fact, no. Let's take our break here because Bhuvana, Varna, Pada, and Mantra are going to take me more than a minute, I think. Maybe 5 minutes. So here we will take our 3 times 5 minute break. Namaste and aloha. We welcome you back with a smile on a sunny day in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast in the Pacific Northwest, in the United States, in the western half of the world, on the planet Earth. But all of that actually coming out of the Word, as Christ was trying to tell John. And there are many stations between the Word and Earth, too. The planet Earth, as we said, many atmospheres, many types of air to breathe, vayu, which we salute, and many gods and deities which you can either forget about or remember or worship and get them on your side. They're all your own powers, so you need to bring them together into a nice congregation inside of yourself and have a big worship fest. A great puja is going on all around, all the time, Sri Ramakrishna said. And he was both a realized soul and a Brahmin priest at the Kali temples. So he had vast experience with both non-dual samadhi and with God with form. In his case, what he called Mother Kali, who could hardly be classified just inside of that moniker of God or goddess with form, but actually is that formless form that we talk about. And so with all of his vast experience in that way, he paved a way for us to understand that God is with form, God is beyond form, and God is beyond both the concepts of form and formlessness. And then sort of leading the way to help us to fill in all the gaps as we're doing. The Taittiriya Upanishad makes sure that we do that because they concentrate on principles like prana. Vivekananda, when he was here, said basically the Westerners are not aware of tanmatras, nor are they aware of prana. So basically he's saying you're missing the step between earth and the third world. You're missing the second world, the U of M. How do you really sustain a thing? How do you really worship Vishnu? Vishnu makes an appearance here, but in the form of Krishna and Ram and Ramakrishna and so forth, but do you know where he comes hence, when he comes, how he comes and goes, as Krishna says, like scents blown from flowers to different locations? Nobody knows how that comes and goes, where it comes from and where it goes to. So all of that is a grand hint and a great invitation for the seeker to begin to search for that glue, that cement that is making everything one, that is cohesing everything. And you'll find it is an inherent oneness, but without knowledge of the fivefold principles, for instance, as we're saying, that cohese together with each other, it's going to be a far cry before you learn that or find that out through any other system. We're good at study here in the West, so that's why Vivekananda brought the Vedanta, because we're intellectual, we're rational, our science is rational, and so forth. We like experimentation. We like new things that come from other countries. We're the first ones to go for them and use them. And these are all things that Vivekananda observed about us. Of course, there were some negative things he observed about us too, like our God was the dollar and so forth. And so these good things that he observed about us, which we studied last week and contrasted them to those areas that we need to improve in, have to do with that open-mindedness and and our power to intellectualize and study. So we should be looking at these great systems like Samkhya and Tantra with their cosmic principles and seeing that as a definite path to God, well-worn, really, although a little overgrown in this age, still well-worn, like a forest you see with a path that used to be through it. You're not going to plunge into the forest. You see this little break that's a little overgrown. You take your machete there and you're through the forest with all the knowledge of the woods and the animals in it and everything else. So a little overgrown maybe, but you need to blaze or reblaze that trail again. And it's standing there, as it were, inviting you into this unknown. And we, the known on the level of the earth has become old, has become tired, has become antiquated, outdated. That's why people are searching inside. They're searching inside the atomic particle. Good luck with that. They're searching inside the computer chip, and everything is suggesting inside. But the real inside we know is the eternal life that Christ wanted the fishermen to have, to make them fishers of men. The real inside is not into the outside of a particle, breaking it down into further exterior principles. The real inside is this meaning of the word that gave way to the particle, to the atom, to the molecule, to the quark. If we didn't have those words, then how could I be communicating to you about them right now? Oh, there's that, and then there's that inside that, and then that inside that, and that. Think a scientist would do that? So the science of philosophy has these words, and we're getting to them in this chart. These bhuvana and varna as alphabets, pada as words, and their ingredients, their matrikas. Interesting word, matrika, a particle of a thing, but also mother. Matrika means mother, so guess what? As you're moving inside, you're beginning to find the mother of wisdom. Saraswati herself is beginning to appear to you. And that's why when they see her, they sing, Vani Saraswati Vagdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mampari Vinapani Hamsavahini Vedanta Rupini Palayama Vani Saraswati Vagdevi Bhagavati Parvati Mampahi. Save me, Mampahi. How do you save me? By revealing to me the essence of the words that I'm using. Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? As one contemporary American said. Do I understand them as they're coming out of my mouth is the real question. If I do, then I can grab your attention. But if I don't, then, I'm just another talker, maybe another lecturer. But the difference between lectures and discourses and transmissions is very important to know. That is, you're using common mantras, you're using middling mantras, and then you're using higher mantras. And the higher mantras attract those people who want higher truth. And it is a whole cross-section of vidya. Vedanta is vidya, is the whole cross-section of that called para vidya, that the West needs to become attracted to. The para vidya they know pretty well, you see, in their own way. The sciences and fine arts and all the other arts, the crafts and so forth, all of those things have become known. Like I say, they're beginning to become a little bit outworn and outmoded because you see them all start blending together into into some sort of morass of oddities. You see, let's have pineapple peanut butter flavor now. You see, you're running out of options. The real connections are gone, and you're falling back on just something new just for the sake of something new, and it doesn't matter how odd it gets. But those who seek the kingdom of heaven within have to know what the kingdoms of heaven are made of. And when you go inside there tonight in deep sleep or in dream, they're not made of aural sounds, they're made of subtle sounds. Your sense of hearing and your sense of speech in a dream, you're probably not saying anything in your waking state when you're saying those words in a dream. They have to be very powerful for the insentient body there, bereft of its outer senses, to all of a sudden say ma or something in a dream. You saw mother in a dream, and it was so powerful that it worked its way out to your outer speech, you see. So something that is that profound, it sticks with us that well, we know has a very deep connection with reality and less of a connection with relativity. In fact, the connections with relativity are so difficult to make that most people haven't made them. Earth to smell, water to taste, fire to sight. They're sort of taken for granted. So when you get to these beautiful teachings of the Taittiriya Upanishad, and where we ended up was just in a very quick explique about this, as we looked at bhuvanas, we looked at kalas and tattva. Now let's look at bhuvana. There are 224 realms that lie within 14 universes, 7 higher and 7 lower, ranging gross to subtle. Some correspond to the 5 elements, and others to subtler worlds which exist beyond the physical plane, located in these spiritual vortexes called chakras. Essentially, all realms of existence lie within. All realms of existence lie within, even this one. If you're saying this is the outer world, then you really don't know it, because it would not be here without the inner realm. And the inner realm would not be there without the causal realm, and the causal realm would not be there without Brahman, you see. I mean, this is the major connection. If you want to take 3 great steps towards reality, you'll do it that way. We learned that last retreat at Windward Waters, didn't we? In that great retreat on Gaudapada's non-dual karaka, on the word and its 3 matras and its 4th state. In all the slokas we took there, that's what you're doing. You're marching 1, 2, 3 in a sort of Neo-Vedanta version of the ancient Upanishads, the way Gaudapada and his school later, Shankara being the most notable, saw it, perceived it. So, yes, you can do it that way. You should do it that way. And, the filling of the gaps then will not be that difficult for you because you understand the A, U, and M of Om. Then everything just sort of falls into place, like water falls into a hole dug in the sand, you see, or more sand falls in too. Those things will just fall into place in order. If that's not so apparent to you, then you can do it by these sets of 5s and just by simply thinking of them, maybe meditating a little on them. If you stumble on one, there's your problem. Then start concentrating on it deeper and see why you're stumbling on that, why it keeps recurring. See, and basically it's yoga psychology is how you're doing this, only it's all working inwardly. It's not working on the surface of the mind trying to get rid of problems. It's working on the source of the problems, which are not in the brain but in the mind. And you're trying to get to them and eradicate them with the laser light of your own understanding, with your own knowledge, vid, Veda, Vedanta. So these bhuvanas, that's a very nice statement, isn't it, from the Tantras? 224 realms lie within 14 universes, 7 higher, 7 lower, ranging gross to subtle. Some correspond with the 5 elements, that's obvious which ones. And also, you could probably say the 5 subtle elements, your dream state, is a whole set of worlds. And then others with subtler worlds which exist beyond the physical plane. They're all located in those spiritual vortexes called chakras. Kundalini Yoga is a great spiritual science that's shared almost equally by Tantra and Vedanta. Vedanta has a Upanishad called Yoga Kundalini Upanishad. So it's not like Vedanta, you leave the realm of Vedanta to get to the Tantra, and then you leave the realm of Tantra to get to Vedanta. There are 2 streams that have been flowing out of India from time out of mind, and it's hard to tell. Probably impossible to tell which one came first because, well, as we know in Vedanta, there are no beginnings, middles, and ends. There's just apparent beginnings, middles, and ends. And those cycles, like an 8, never end, you see. So people are looking for, when's this going to end? See, well, it's going to end when you transcend the need to come back into cycles again and realize your stationary consciousness, your Shiva nature. Now, there are even 7 nether realms that are made out of words. Hell, you see. You say that with such intensity, but you never say heaven, you see. So why is it that most people end up in the other place? See, in their own mind, because heaven and hell both exist in your mind in Vedanta, not out there. When 2 wrestlers came out, you see, Ramakrishna tells a story. One is, they're both big and burly and strong. See, one comes out and goes, touches his heart and goes like this. The other comes out, touches his heart and goes, or just touches his heart. See? So one thinks God is up there still, and the audience is going, who's he pointing to? Even they know more than he does. But the other, knows. No, the kingdom of heaven is within me. My Lord, my Father is within me, and so forth. So this is true even of those realms that seem to be outside of you. If you think the atomic particle and the subatomic particle are outside of you, you haven't connected them to your thoughts yet. You know, that the thought atom, the thought particle, which had a word way back in ancient Sanskrit called matrika or matra, a few other words, anam, you know, means food, but it also means particle. So you've got these words that are ancient like that, they knew that when they looked at everything, this must be particles I'm seeing, you see. So I look even with the naked eye at paint, you see on the wall, I can see like a pattern, or I can look at pattern in trees and so forth, and my eyes get intensified by whatever means, then I can begin to see patterns shifting and moving, you see. As if the eye is taking me towards a subtler realm too, like in Dream Tonight. So those 7 nether realms are the patalas. Patala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Talatala, Sutala, Vitala, and Atala are lifted also amongst those. Those are the 7 lower worlds. 7 higher are the Saptarishi worlds, you see, with the great souls presiding over each. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that Swami Vivekananda was the presiding rishi of the Brahmaloka. That's the highest of the 7 worlds. So when he came down, we were saying, probably shouldn't say that, when he came out from that depths, you see, he was coming from the Brahmaloka, or sometimes called Satyaloka, the Loka of truth, where he's helping beings get rid of that last little attachment to form. As Sri Ramakrishna said, in that Loka, you can see Brahman everywhere, but you can't quite merge with it. There's like a subtle curtain there that's keeping you from it. Sort of like, he said, living on the beach and getting into the water every day, but you can't quite let go of your beach hut and the nice warm sand and just go for the ocean. That's it. That would be transcendence, absolute. Mukti, moksha, kaivalya, samadhi, nirvana. That is nirvikalpa samadhi. So Vivekananda there at that 7th realm, helping beings get into full merging. So Ramakrishna convinced him to come to this furthest out world, furthest down world, you see, and take on a form here for 39 years. Like a homa bird's egg that falls for years, then hatches just before it hits earth, and then swoops back up to its mother. That's how he described this great soul, this Nityasiddha, Swami Vivekananda. So that kind of being could even go to the hell realms, and probably has, you know, to help convince people to give up that dream of suffering that they're in, that nightmare of suffering. Or go to the realm of the ancestors and the celestials to convince the ancestors to give up that dream of heaven that they're involved in and go beyond all name and form. Come with me to the realm of the rishis. That's where you are right now when you came into this classroom. You left the earth and you came into the realm of the rishis. I'm trying to convince you to stay there all the time. Welcome to my world, as they say. So my bhuvana, you know, as a expressor of the Dharma is there. That's where I have to pinion myself in order to have enough facility to be able to explain such subtle things as my teacher did to me and the spiritual director of our organization, like Shiksha did, our founder in the early 70s and 80s. Let's look at Varna, the garland of letters. See that beautiful song of Mother Kali, that she wear a garland of skulls. So this idea of Varnamala. It is the science of 51 alphabets, which is an expression of the Mahashakti, the essence of indivisible truth, which reveals the mystery of creation. The mystery of creation is called Shristi Rahasya. Vibrates via particles of intelligence, called Chit Matras, and includes 3 main elements: matrikas, its alphabets; shabda, the words; artha, their meaning. It's a crash course in Tantra philosophy. But this is how you get to understand the word that Christ was talking about. Tantra really looked into it. Devoid of matrika shakti, consciousness could not reveal itself. Worlds, beings, objects, even Ishvara, all evolved from matrika, words, alphabets. Alphabet is a friendly term we're using here because we know about that. And 51 languages at the time of this rendering, so you could see languages are always expanding and then contracting like everything else. So basically, at the time of this collection, you might say, or this compilation, this is how they were explaining it. But the important things there are the chit matras, these particles of intelligence that are the secret of creation. Srishti Rahasya, creation, which we would prefer to use the word projection to be more accurate. The early yogically influenced people who came to America were speaking in terms of, creation, preservation, destruction. And yes, but that's like, as I say, a tempest in a teapot, going on in two hands, called projection and withdrawal. Those hands are mothers, and that creation, preservation, destruction is going on in the teapot there. It's just all cyclic. Boils for a while, cools, boils, cools. Society foments for a while, as Vivekananda said, then it goes into a death cycle. Nothing happens. So all this change that's going on, back and forth, up and down, right and left, in and out, is all going on in these wonderful eternal hands of the Divine Mother of the Universe. And so that's why the great beings like Sri Ramakrishna and others worship the Mother. Why Swami Vivekananda and Swami Brahmananda both went to have darshan with Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, and would come out reeling as if they'd just seen, instead of a village woman, they'd just seen the Divine Mother manifest through this pure form of Sri Sharda. So, Chit Matras, in fact, the father of yoga calls her Chit Shakti, the power of intelligence, if you want, power of words. Saraswati herself, her own name being the oldest word for Divine Mother you can find anywhere, in any language, and written down, carbon dated if you wish, in the Rig Veda, Saraswati or Umavati. See, I found it also in the Keno Upanishad. See, Keno Upanishad is one of these underlined here. See, Keno Upanishad, one of the Samaveda teachings. So they call her Umavati there, or Himavat, after the mountains, Himalayas, because the mountains are all made of particles. The mountains are all made of particles. So everything is just infused with vibrating particles. We know that already in our physics and quantum physics, but we're only applying it to the outer. You shouldn't be looking at that yet. We're only applying it to the outer world. And the secret of Srishti Rahasya is that everything has come from inside out. See, so sustenance, projection, sustenance, withdrawal is the way we put that, because we know there's no death. We know that change is an illusion, that Brahman, the reality, doesn't change, and all is Brahman. So that means if you're seeing change, you must be seeing some permutation, you must be seeing with some wool over your eyes. So you must be seeing some superimposition or some sublation or some maya. Man went to a temple and saw the Lord of the universe in the image. Another man went in there and just saw some garbage in his mind. That's how Vivekananda puts it, you see. Another story Sri Ramakrishna gives, blind man goes to the temple. He's got a staff. He moves the staff one way and encounters the image. Salutes it. Moves it the other way, no image. So he knows God is both with form and without form. So these ways of saying also very simply illustrated by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, but this is complex, and this is worth study, this is worth putting your mind on. It's a new way of thinking that's very ancient. Varnas, okay. Pada, the construction and meaning of whole words springing from particles, matrikas, is what is called pada. The arrangement of these words into statements and profound utterances is constitutive of mantras. So now you're looking at the particles. We look at the words, and then we look at the sentence and the paragraph and the page and the book and the library and so forth. Go outward with it, expansive. But if you want to go inward with it, you would go back to how the inner worlds, how they're made of particles, and how those are made of principles, deities presiding over it, the 5 kalas, for instance, 5 forms of kala, and they're going inward with the word. And then they will find the word that Christ told John about. So whether you go outward or inward with it, which you should probably do both, to know the whole makeup of you, that is, Shankara will later say, would know the makeup of your non-self, until you can, with all definitive conclusions, say, that's the non-self and this is the self. That changes, this doesn't. That's the changing Brahman, this is the unchanging Brahman. That's Brahman with qualities, this is Brahman without qualities. That is, all those categories are changing Brahman. This one thing is the unchanging Brahman. That by which knowing all else is known, as the Upanishad says. So padas, whole words springing from these particles. Mantra, the science of cosmic sound. Mantra is direct knowledge. Divine spontaneous action proceeds from it. Tattvas form the objective side of experience, while mantra forms the subjective side. By practicing these two aspects, one attains spiritual ascendancy. Mantra, then, is special knowledge which, when contemplated, reveals the otherwise unseen truth that the universe is full of Brahman. So a way Tantra describes how to see Brahman in everything. And notice that act would come from that, you see. Active thinking, yes, inward and outward, but when it finally comes down to spontaneous action, that is, the action of a pure soul, the karmaless action of an avatar like Krishna and so forth, and knowledge of how other people get into mixed and bad karma cycles, would come from mantra. Like everything Krishna spoke on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is now considered a mantra. Maybe back then, in that cycle, Treta Yuga with Arjuna, it was just a godlike conversation. See? Some people up there in the hills, some soldiers taking a break between the war, gambling, you see. Krishna's with Arjuna down on the battlefield, you see. They're gambling. Is there time for another hand? One of them leans over. Yeah, Krishna's still talking with Arjuna. There's time for another one. So down on the battlefield there, what's not known by anyone, including Arjuna, is this discourse that this conversation that they are having is a discourse. That discourse is a transmission, and that transmission will become slokas of a scripture, mantras. And that's how Krishna is living. Why? Because he knows everything he's saying, not just intellectually, but as it goes all the way back into the deepest level of his consciousness, of our singular consciousness, our mutual consciousness. A crash course in how to attain Brahmagyana in Tantra, Sadakya it's called, the 6 paths of knowledge leading to perfection. Beautiful study. I mean, it took me a long time to garner this out of the Tantras, a long time to put it in such a... I mean, you think this is complex. You should have seen what I went through to get it, what I waded through. Some very esoteric, old-timey, Vedic lore that half of which I didn't even understand, you see. So it had to garner it, and this is what the result of it is. And it's a chart we very rarely look at, but when we want to take it out, say at a tantric retreat and so forth, we'll take it out and see what the word really is like, how powerful it is, how it has particles. Not just your objects have particles, but these are intelligent particles, chit matras. And the new book is going to come out in October called Jnana Matra, intelligent particles in streams, how they flow. See, that'll be the 3rd book in the series. First, reclaiming Kundalini Yoga. 2nd, dissolving the mind stream. 3rd, Jnana Matra. And 4th, mental asana. And if there's time, the 5th, all the same size with the same number of charts and pages in it roughly, is going to be called White Crane, White Swan, How Zen Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta Show the Same Truth. White Crane, White Swan. So if the mother of the words decides to keep this composite of particles together, then that's what will happen in the next few years. But in October, you'll see the third of those come out. It's all done. There's probably no better chart to take than this for this sloka. We proceed to explain the science of phonetics. It deals with sounds, accents, pitch, quantity, articulation, modulation, and the conjunction of letters. It would just go past you, wouldn't it, if you just read that in the Taittiriya Upanishad. If you were just let's say, the average human being wouldn't even be reading this, but if you just say you're the average Vedantic student, you see, just, oh yeah, okay, explain that to me. And what they're going to go into is actually these vyahritis, Ur, Bhuva, Swaha, how those 7 worlds are given names. So they're really, Taittiriya Upanishad is really heading more towards these tattva bhuvana kind of idea. They're going to be explaining it through these worlds, these 7 upper and 7 lower worlds, but they're going to be concentrating on the upper ones. You know, our Gayatri mantra, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, I'll take that apart with a chart for you tomorrow. There are 3 new charts you haven't seen yet, nobody has seen, that I have here with me on some of these slokas. In fact, the next sloka takes up the first of them. We'll probably have time to see it today. But before we do, I wanted you to take a gander at this. That is, take a Paramahamsa at this. Six proofs of reality in Advaita Vedanta. The Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, that is Mother herself, her scripture, she says, priests, pundits, and other knowers of Vedas worship various gods, but the Maharishis say that as the one Ganges manifests herself through many flowing channels, so too does the one Mahashakti express herself in all Deva and Devi forms. To come to know this supreme Mahadevi, the best of knowers of truth, advise utilizing the various proofs of the existence of Brahman. So that's what you see here, these 6 proofs of reality. You can do it through Arthapati, circumstance. You can do it through Upamana, analogy or similitude. You can do it through Anumana, inference. You can do it through Anupalabdhi, non-apprehension. You can do it through Shabda, verbal testimony, and you can do it through Pratyaksha, perception. And these other 2 come from the Puranas. You can do it through witness consciousness, and you can do it through tradition, or the hearsay of tradition. So you put them all together, you could say, really, there are 10 of them, but 8 of them. Now, presumption, Arthapati, means assumption of a fact known in order to account for an unknown fact. Non-apprehension means non-perception of a thing based upon the perception of the knower. That would be like, oh, there was a book here earlier, now there isn't. So the fact that it isn't there proves to me that it was there once. See, all of this is towards reality. You're using this to prove the existence of reality to yourself, because relativity has been covering it so long. You need some mental abilities to point and shoot, to penetrate this appearance of relativity. So even emptiness then points to fullness, you see. That's even the Tibetan Buddhists say that. You know, Shunyata, emptiness, is just a stage. In Vedanta we would say neti neti is just a stage, but it has to arrive at iti iti to prove itself. So this is something that's pointing the way. Analogy, attainment of knowledge by comparison and similarity. So you use analogies, like Sri Ramakrishna used in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, so many different analogies. Turtle and buries its eggs in the sand. You know, it floats in the lake or the ocean, but its mind is fixed on its eggs in the sand. So ocean, world, sand, eggs, Brahman. See, although you're in the ocean of the world, you should always be thinking about Brahman, where your essence is. You see, the turtle always thinks of its eggs that way. That's like typical analogy. put that together with this and you get the idea. You see, it's a simple one. Verbal testimony, called apyavaktas or agama. It means uttered or written statements. That is very much in accordance, of course, with knowing this. So I'm showing the 6 ways of Sadakya, that's called, with the 6 proofs of Vedanta, because it really, when you contemplate it more, it begins to connect it very nicely. So verbal testimony would be shabda, or shruti, would be the scriptures. Like, for instance, we say, Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha, Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha, Akanda Rupa Stitir Eva Moksho, Brahmadvitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam. So the knowers of Brahman say all this is Brahman. Time, space, living beings, and the worlds, right? You see the beauty of it? Shankar's quote in 700 AD in the Vivekachudamani. They say all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings, and the world. Aren't those all covered here? Then he says, Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagat Cha. Then he says, Akanda Rupa Stitireva Moksho. Moksha, illumination or enlightenment, is at hand when you know this. Living in constant recognition of the fact that all is Brahman is enlightenment. You want a good definition for enlightenment? There it is. Best one ever. Constant recognition of the fact that all of this is Brahman is enlightenment. Not off and on recognition, or every so often in a given lifetime, all of a sudden coming up with some insight, oh, I see, and then, well, what was that again? Not off and on again, not running hot, running cold. Constant recognition of the fact. And where is that fact found? Shruti, in the testament, in the verbal testimony of the scriptures. See, Eva Moksho, and then Brahmadvitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam. Pramanam proof, Shrutayaha scripture. The proof of it is found in the scriptures. Why? Because that's time, space, living beings in the world it's all come from the Word, and the Word is scripture. In the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was God, you see. So that can't X the scriptures out of the Word. You've got to make sure that you know that the scriptures are in the Word, are the Word made manifest. Your body is the Word made manifest, not just Christ's body. He was the walking Word. And if John had known that right away, then he wouldn't have had to go to Gethsemane and meditate on what the hey Christ was telling him. See, for so many days, you just had seen Jesus as the Word, walking Word. So now you have to see yourself as a walking Word. You have a word for it. It's called body. But you have 5 of them, right? How many? An outer body, an energy body, a mind body, an intellect body, and an ego body. Count for them. And then peel them off one at a time. Peel them off how? By meditating on them. And finding out what the scripture says about them. Basically that they're unreal. That they're the non-self. They're not the true self. Revelation. See, I'm nothing that dies. I'm nothing that moves. I'm nothing that thinks. I'm nothing that is limited, like a limited intellect, and I'm not an ego. Shot him down 5 in a row, like ducks at a circus. See? Then, oh, I'm the shooter. See? The circus is in me. I'm not in the circus. All Maya is in you. You're never in Maya, Vivekananda says. A little bit more about Shruti, because it's Shabda, because, Shabda means Brahman, sound Brahman. So, because it's basically what we're going by. But inference is also very important. If there's smoke on yonder hill, then there must be fire. See? So here's the smoke. name, form, time, space, and causality. So where's the fire? See? I've come to yonder hill, I've found the smoke, now where's the fire that's causing it? And where's the cause of the effect? And when I see that cause, I must know that it's an effect of another cause that's subtler. And I'll march back in probably how many steps to find the cause of that effect. And then I've settled the matter for all time. And when I pass from body this time, I'll know the road to the kingdoms of heaven within. I'll know the amber stairs of birth and death up and down like the back of my hand. See? Which has how many fingers? Perception, that is, direct, immediate cognition, external and internal, by the 10 senses. How many? So you have 5 senses in your dream state. See, you could even say, dreaming aside, when you go into meditation, you probably still have your 5 senses. If you can shut out, in meditation, most people shut this out pretty well. Taste, they shut smell out pretty well. Maybe incense calls them out a little bit. You see, and they shut their eyes, and that's not a great problem. They probably don't shut their ears very well. See, so because sounds still distract them. But if you can shut off the 5 external senses, then you're working on the 5 internal senses. So that's not just dream there that you're talking about. That is, I know the dream of life is beginning to disappear before me. This thirst for life forever quenched because it drags from birth to death and death to birth of soul. So I'm going to have to shut out my other 5 of those 10 senses too, effectively. And that's not dreaming, it's the end of dream. So you're more in charge of the process, is what I'm saying, when you're meditating. But when you're dreaming, it happens to you naturally, but it also comes back naturally. You're not in charge of that process. You have to become in charge of it. It's going on by nature and by prana, and that's the first thing you're supposed to get a hold of. Vedanta wants you to get a hold of nature. Yoga wants you to get a hold of prana. You put those two together, then you're the master of the world A and the world U, right? Outer world A, inner world, prana, mind, thought, carrying, coming, going, gaining, losing. Now it's just this M, you see, that Mahendranath Gupta was nicely named, M. Let's take the final chant, chant, sloka, mantra, paragraph here from the Shaiva Siddhanta Darshana. This is where a lot of this comes from, Shaivism, Kashmiri Shaivism, Shaiva Siddhanta, and other forms of Shaivism, and then from the Vedanta. Knowledge has come to the soul in 2 ways, i.e. through the instrumentality of the 4 inner faculties, thought, ego, intelligence, and mind, and through the 5 states of consciousness called avastas, that receive their source material from the 5 senses. Further, knowing it is not a self-contained process, for it receives its initiative and its directive from God. God activates the soul and causes it to know in the same way as the soul activates the 5 organs of senses and causes them to know. That last sentence actually would be a very good meditation. And it's been echoed in the Upanishads, that by which the eye sees is different than the eye seeing, and that by which the mind conceives of is different than the mind conceiving. So this is another way of putting it. God activates the soul and causes it to know in the same way as this soul itself activates the 5 organs of senses and causes them to know. So from that hour 5, trace it inward to the inner 5, and trace that back to the 5-fold mind. See, it's got to work in both directions. If it doesn't, you know where to meditate. Like I say, if you trip over something, simple psychology really, and how to overcome it in the superior way. Or you could just say, learn to walk better. 6 proofs of reality in Advaita Vedanta. Last time we went through that was in a recent retreat at Windwood Waters, and we went through it a lot more thoroughly. But this is as a correlative this time, a complement to this, which is really a main focal chart. In the remaining 20 minutes, we will get to see this new chart. So, with great trepidation and problem and remorse, I leave the second lesson to go to the third, which starts out Sahana. Yeah, Saha. You probably should know those words by now. May we both, teacher and disciple, have glory and refulgence, born of holy life and study. So lesson 3 kicks in, and it's going to tell you about these 5 vyahritis and the 5 perceptible principles in the universe, which are also called the great combinations. We can read it in the slokas, and maybe to make some headway we should, but then we can see this chart that I've constructed on it, which is new. So to read it first, we've already given the invocation. May we both, teacher and disciple, have glory and refulgence, born of holy life and study. So we want to be together as a unit, studying together these truth principles and growing in our wisdom, in our knowledge of them, and applying them. Vedanta wants you to apply them. Vedas, Tantras and so forth may state them, but you need to apply them in Vedanta. That's Neo-Vedanta of Vivekananda, you might say. So let's start into it. Chapter 1, Lesson 3, the Vyahritis. Now we shall expound in order the sacred doctrine of conjunction based on the 5 perceptible objects. How many? Universe, light, learning, progeny, and self are the 5 perceptible objects, they're calling them. The observations of these 5 objects are together called the great combinations. And you'll begin to recognize that I've come before this scripture and given you teachings of dissolution of the mind stream and how to meditate on earth, air, fire, water, and ether in all their variations. Like, you don't just say earth, okay, the world, and go on. You say earth, dirt, clods, stones, gold, ores, trees, many different varieties, and so forth and so on, plants. Earth, you take earth all as a meditation. And if there's anything there that you stumble on, then you look at it, you see, and you fill in your little bit of missing information there. Most of that's pretty easy to do for most people. If you want to run to Google it, you may, see, at that level. But it's probably better to ferret it out inside of you and get the synapse firing. There was a little misconnection there, so bring it together, all of a sudden you know it. At first you thought, I can never know that. But if you just spend a little time with it, it connects. It's like 2 magnetic lines. They just have to eventually find each other. And once that connection is made, it's there for all time. But it became disconnected because of your own ignorance. Ignorance is unreal. How can it cause any real doubt? The Avadhuta Gita says. Ignorance is unreal, so how can it cause any real doubt? You're letting an unreal thing cause an unreal thing. So, you're really behind the 8 ball here. You see? And you're never going to get in front of it until you make that connection. So these are all about the great connections. Let's take the first lesson of that lesson. 1. The teaching concerning the universe is this. The earth is the prior form, the firmament is the posterior form, and the atmosphere is the junction, and air is the means of joining. One should meditate on the universe bearing in mind these interior relations. So like I said, I came before you, gave you this teaching of dissolving the mind stream and remanifesting and dissolving it. This is giving you the more specific directions on how to do that in case you haven't done it yet, or in case you're in the midst of doing it and finding some problem. The teaching on light, here's the second form of meditation. The teaching on light is as follows. Fire is the prior form, sun is the posterior form, water is the junction, and lightning is the means of joining. Thus, one should meditate upon light. Give you a deeper explanation with the chart.
What now follows is the observation on learning. The teacher is the prior form, the pupil is the posterior form, learning is the junction, and the imparting of instruction is the means of joining. I think you're beginning to get the gist now. With this third, it becomes more clear what they're doing here. They're bringing those aspects of the mind together so that they can fuse, so that they can fire, if you want to put it in Western terms. Like a man starting up that old Chevy truck that was in the garage. It started! Somebody just told me that a few days ago. I was on the river with some good old boy was telling me, about this old Chevy truck that started, and he was such in joy when those things fired up. So I was thinking, I know what you mean. Let's go on, because let's take these 5 and read them first. Next, the observations on progeny is given. Mother is the prior form, father is the posterior form, progeny is the junction, and procreation is the means of joining. We shouldn't have much trouble with that one. Thus, one should meditate on progeny. For instance, say you didn't meditate on that. You just pumped out children. Ignorantly, you see, without this knowledge. And so the whole thing is done in ignorance. Children are created in ignorance, raised in ignorance. You did the act in ignorance. What do you expect will be the result? See? Well, just go walking in the world. There's a street right down the street here. You can walk up and down. You should have seen the river I was floating down on the 4th of July. Both banks. Ghetto blasters, drugs, cigarettes, beer. Most of it ending up in the river. See? Now you get my gist? It's ignorant life. It's irreverent life. What follows is concerning the self. This is the 5th of the great conjunctions. The lower jaw is the prior form, the upper jaw is the posterior form, speech or the vocal organs are the conjunction, and the tongue is the means of union. Thus one should meditate on the self. That is, the self is the whole physical aspect and psychical aspect of the personality. It's not capitalized here, so you probably, you can probably say they're really not talking about the Atman, but really they are talking about the Atman. In these old Upanishads, when they talked about the personality self, they meant the Atman, and vice versa. It was only later that they began to divide that into, changing self, unchanging self, uppercase, lowercase. Let's make sure we know that the Atman is separate from all things that change. They weren't that concerned with that back here because in that era there wasn't that much ignorance about it. Everyone knew they had a higher self, and it was no problem to divide them, you see. You must separate the wheat from the chaff. Even Christ said that 2,000 years ago. But so 5,000 years before that, you can see how, or you can almost taste or intuit how people in India particularly knew these conjunctions and could make the particular or specific discrimination about it. That gets us into lesson 4. So let's take this chart, and that will be just enough time tomorrow. Actually, we'll start with this chart today, and then we will begin with it tomorrow. There's the beautiful doctrine of conjunctions, the 5 great combinations. That is the first of my offerings. Remember how the Taittiriya Upanishad, when we went into it, I probably gleaned some, maybe 24 charts out of that by going through it with you. I'll have to go back and count them, but there are quite a few. In fact, this was one of the earlier to mid ones that came out of the Taittiriya Upanishad. So now it's going to happen the same with the Taittiriya. We'll have some, this is rather esoteric wisdom for us and for the Upanishads. The Upanishads usually don't lend themselves towards prana, food, things like that. There's a mention. Even the Gita mentions the food. But, that's, I think the value of this Upanishad is that if we don't know the tanmatras and we don't know the prana, as Vivekananda said, then we should go to a scripture that, that is avowed to be by Shankara one of the higher scriptures, and we can then find out what prana and tanmatras are, and flesh out our knowledge about those. And when we do, we'll find out our life, is becoming fuller. Disease are less of a problem. Food is treated more reverentially, see, and all sorts of energy is purer, and so forth. So let's see if I've already read these quotes. No, I haven't. So here's some quotes from this Upanishad later that apply to this particular teaching. The first one is, "The illumined seer who revealed this essential wisdom by his deep intuition, having grouped the various elements of existence, these 5, declared that the entire universe of gross and subtle worlds is based on sets of 5 principles, and that one set of 5s enables and preserves the next set of 5s. The seer opens up cosmic vision by knowing this principle of 5s based on the facts known to all." Probably should have quoted that verse when I first put out the dissolving the mind stream, but I think it comes as a nice, not surprise so much, but it's a nice confirmation that this Pancha Karna process is not just in Sankhya, and it's not just referred to occasionally in yoga or meditated on in yoga and then referred to in Vedanta, but it's like way back to the ancient rishis. That's from this scripture later on. We'll come across that sloka later. Might as well, while we're here, take the other one down at the bottom. "One should meditate upon the elements that compose the universe, namely earth, intermediate space, heaven, sky, the 4 innate directions, fire, air, sun, moon, stars, water, herbs, plants, trees, ether, and one's body, including skin, muscle, bones, and marrow. Then meditate on the 5 senses and the 5 pranas. Then contemplate Om, the universal term of compliance, which is Brahman." Beautiful, you see. I mean, it's an instruction in the Upanishad. I've often said you don't get practice in the Upanishads. You get the 4 treasures and 6 jewels. Is it really a practice, or is it more like, inner peace sounds like something I should have, I think I'll practice inner peace. Look at me. God! And all of a sudden you go in a rage, you see, when you come out. So you have to have them, you have to attain them. And they should be your very properties. They are inherent to your very being. So there's a sloka coming up in the Taittiriya Upanishad that you've just read there. Now, a Sanskrit word for it, Mahasamhitaha. It's right here, you see, are the great combinations. You'll find that word in this sloka, Mahasamhitaha. And they're the 5 perceptible objects. The word object here, you're going to have to expand your definition of it. See? I mean, no doubt the body is an object, but that's a good example. You see that most people think of the body as their self. But if you just begin to think of it as an object, then maybe you could get detachment from it, you see. So there's a lot of early practicality in expanding your knowledge of what? A word. You see, a word. So body would be one of those, for instance. And that's just, of course, the self. They're calling the self here. It's there in the middle. You see, this image is beautiful from Ramananda Tiwari's collection. Thank you, Ramananda, again and again for providing me with so many beautiful images, copyright free, to use for these charts. Because then this provides a beautiful backdrop, which is both graceful to the eyes and then, of course, the words which are graceful to the mind and the tongue. So you see here Sri Ram Chandra, the Avatara, and he's doing a puja to Shiva. Doing a puja to Shiva. And that's in the great itihasa, like Mahabharata and Ramayana and so forth. You'll find mentions of him doing this worship of Lord Shiva. What Vivekananda said often, have you done your Shiva puja yet today? So he would tell mostly the Indian people and so forth, make sure that they kept that worship of God with form up. And but of course it applies to those of us who know anything about worship ourselves. Now here you see the 5, and here's the first one, and I've just put it in a straight list so you can see the connection easier. Earth, firmament, atmosphere, and air. So you're pretty much talking about planet, firmament is space, atmosphere is air, and the atmosphere is the akasha, and then air is how it's all brought together. You live by that. Otherwise you wouldn't be seeing heavens or earth if you didn't have this air supplied by vital energy, prana. Learning, there you see it. Well, let's go across. Light, that's the order they took them. Fire, sun, water, and lightning. You can see how they put them in great conjunction so you can meditate upon them in that way. You'd be surprised what you can uncover about these taken for granted words and principles, objects, suns, moons, by meditating on them. You might find out that there's actually a deity of the moon and a deity of the sun and a deity of fire and a deity of water. And you can see how they've all been taken into account by the ancient seers and how they thought of them. Not just thought of them like conceived of them, but how they saw them in place as elementals, like the nagas in water, and then as the angels and celestials in the earthly, in the heavenly waters, and so forth and so on inside. They begin to see this whole kingdoms of heaven within, and the Father's mansion with many chambers. They begin to see these and inspect them inside. It's interesting because you do this inspection, and all the time really everything is crying out to you. It's all within you. It's all within you. You see, but as you're inspecting it, as is anything, you don't see the one thing in it, right? You, the conjoiner, see, the master conjoiner. You know the story in Advaita Vedanta about the teacher and his 9 students come to a river, and then they jump in to try and ford it. They get across, and the teacher gets them together and counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and he's like beside himself because he's lost one of his students to the waters. And he's busy vexing about that when a objective party comes up, you see, and says, "What's wrong?" "Oh, we boarded the river, the 10 of us, and now there's only 9 of us. One of us, alas, is gone." So he said, "Count again." So the teacher went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See? And then the objective party said, "But you forgot to count yourself. You're the 10th man." Oh, wonderful. You see, and then the revelation that comes, and the relief and the bliss. So as we inspect the outer, we know that we forget the self. I mean, science, psychology, religion, whatever you're doing outwardly, you often forget the self in your inspection of all the principles. Who is doing it? Who is seeing? Who is hearing? Who is touching? Who am I would be the better question. But it's the same internally too then, you see, is that as you're inspecting these things and making the conjunctions so that you can have the coming together of bhuvana, tattva, kalas, and so forth, then you find out that you forget to account for yourself, the one who's doing the conjoining. Well, that's what it's all leading to. I'll give you an advance hint, as if you didn't know it already, knowing the Vedanta. So let's look at learning. Teacher, student, study, and imparting. So, the transmission is very important because teacher can be alone, student can be alone. Each of them can be doing their own study. When the teacher comes together and the student listens and then studies, then he knows that the teacher has imparted him the highest wisdom. See. So, tad vidti pranipatena paripasyena sevaya upadek shanti te jnana jnaninas tattva darshanaha, Krishna says in the Gita. Sri Krishna. Says, through the sincere student approaches the teacher through humility, through prostration, and through service. Then the wise ones initiate them into the highest wisdom. If you have a student that comes forth and he's all arrogant and he thinks he knows everything, and so forth, then it's a waste of time for both of you to be together. So the teacher together with the student in study, which is how the whole second verse, the whole second lesson was all about that. See, how did we start this conjunction study? It said basically, Lesson 3, may we both, teacher and disciple, have glory and refulgent, born of holy life and study. So, our coming together to study together through the last 20 years of SRV life, and any study you did prior to that with any other teacher, and any study that you will do with a teacher, should you have one after this, then is about this principle. This is a conjunction. This is a great conjunction. I can go on and on about this one. You want me to? Time is up, really. Let's take this up again tomorrow morning. It'll be a good way of anyone new here tomorrow can be ushered into the Taittiriya Upanishad through this new chart. So here, let's end with a chant. Om Bhadram Karnabihi Shriyama Devaha Bhadram Pasyema Akshabirya Jatraha Stirai Rangayishtushtuvam Sastanuvir Vyashema Devahitam Yadayahu Swasti Na Indra Vrida Shravaha Swasti Na Pusha Vishwadevaha Swasti Nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti No Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we see with these eyes what is good and spiritual. May we hear with these ears what is noble and uplifting. And may we, while worshipping the Lord and Mother with healthy minds and bodies, live a life which is beneficial to ourselves and to all other beings. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.